What's good, streaming people? Welcome to CBS Sports HQ. I'm Tommy Tran. Jenny Dell will join us later this hour. We're off Super Wildcard Weekend and on to the Divisional Round of the NFL. The top seeds in the NFC and AFC have enjoyed their byes and are both at least a touchdown favorite in their games. Let's start with Saturday. Jacksonville catching 8.5 at Arrowhead as the top-seeded Chiefs laying a big number, 4:30 Eastern. Then the Giants, fresh off their win in Minnesota, right back at it with the Eagles. Philly laying 7.5. You may recall back in Week 18, it was the Giants and Brian Daboll resting all of their guys. And Philly, with Nick Sirianni having something to play for, they won that game, but the Giants did stay within the number. Speaking of within numbers, I missed last week. Here's the ATS scoreboard, and it didn't look like it went well for Brady Quinn of the wild card round, but it did go well for Pete Prisco on Super Wildcard Weekend. The numbers are still tight overall, and Petey Prisco does have the edge still in best bet. So let's bring in the fellas. Brady Quinn, Pete Prisco. Brady, what happened?
Well, my good luck charm, Tommy Tran, was not there with us last week. Unfortunately, we had Jenny Dell, who maybe, depending on when she enters the show, could be tough. So it didn't work out. Either way,
you had a bad
congrats.
week.
I had a bad week.
Good week.
Congrats to you. You had a good week. I did get a best bet right, though.
That's an amazing feat right there. He got a best bet right. I mean, I've been hot with my best bets all year, but I actually had a good week for once, and I feel good about this week. I didn't change my picks 14 times leading into the picks this week. Did you?
I did. I actually was floundering. I was back and forth the whole time. It's only 4 games, but the reality is they're big games.
So actually, producer Jack's telling me, because I was here last week. It didn't feel like it was like a long week ago, but we went through the game. So maybe I'm bad luck charm for you then, Brady.
That is not good.
Because we're back.
We vamped to like another blog.
You've changed. Nobody knows what you have. You've changed 4 times.
Well,
How many
maybe I'm
different
trying
times?
to. First off, I have the lead. Can we acknowledge that?
you do.
You do have the lead.
I
How
built
many
a
different times have
4-game
you
lead.
changed your picks so far today?
Probably 6.
That's amazing.
Amongst all games. Amongst all the games.
See, I just pick them and leave them.
Yep.
That's why. You
And
do
that's
your
one of the reasons
analysis,
why
you do your picks.
It's one of the reasons why you're losing right now.
I'm catching you, though. Here I come.
Doesn't seem like a week ago. Seems like we talked about this longer than 7 days, and we saw quite a Super Wildcard weekend. But let's get to the games happening this weekend, and we'll start with Jacksonville and Kansas City. So, Brady, you've kind of changed your mind according to Pete and your pick here. Kansas City's laying a pretty big number. What are you expecting in this one?
It's a big number, and that was probably part of the frustration for me. I think for a lot of people out there who are trying to pick this game, if you're into the gaming part of this, is, it's a lot of points for a game in the divisional round, and you're looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars based on what they did last week. Look, give them all the credit in the world. Trevor Lawrence for being able to throw 4 interceptions and have the perseverance to be able to come through that in the second half. But we also can chalk it up to the Chargers charging, which maybe is what that led to. Now Joe Lombardi's, they're moving on from Shane Day, their quarterback coach, and obviously Lombardi, their OC, they're moving on from in Los Angeles. So as good of a win as it was for the Jaguars, they now have to go on the road to Kansas City in a place that it's tough to win a ball game, and it's obviously tough taking on Andy Reid and the Chiefs when he's got additional time. So again, it's a big number. I've settled on laying the 8.5 points here, and the Chiefs taking care of business versus the Jaguars.
Final decision?
Final decision.
There you go. Okay. I'm on the other side. I'm taking Jacksonville. And the reason I'm taking Jacksonville is
You're the mayor of Jacksonville.
it's too many points. It's way too many points. And I went back and watched the last meeting between the two on tape, and it was a blowout early in that game, but Jacksonville had a touchdown called back for an illegal man downfield. There were opportunities for them to score more points. And I think what happened last week in the beginning of that game was a young team that got ambushed and didn't have any idea what they were doing in the first
Ambush,
playoff
that's
game.
how you describe it?
They looked terrible.
Okay.
They were awful. Okay. And then they regrouped. Yeah. And then they came out and they started playing their kind of football. And I think they're going to score points on Kansas City. I think they're not going to stop the Chiefs, by the way. Chiefs are winning the game, but it's going to be closer than the number. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think both offenses will score points. I'll take Trevor Lawrence plus the points in this game.
You know what time it is, Pete? It's time to take a look at Pete Prisco betting on the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I was right last week.
You were right last week, but overall 6-12, folks. If you are taking Pete's advice here, just know you're going to be on the wrong side of
But
this.
I'm getting hot at the right time. Like a team getting hot at the right time. It's postseason. I'm getting hot at the right time.
It was the wild card round. It's one round.
Oh, well, now we're on to
You were
round 2.
awful in Week 18.
I'm on to round 2.
By the way, Pete, so you're favoring the Jags to cover the number. From what I'm hearing from you, do you think they do the backdoor cover where they're going to be down?
No, they're going to be in the game.
So they're going to be the game from the get-go.
They're going to score points. The Chiefs' defense has questions
It's
in
better
the secondary.
It's better than what it was in the past, though. It's been improved this season going into
But
the
down the
playoffs.
stretch, they weren't great. The Texans moved the ball on them when they played them. The Broncos moved the ball on them when they played them. And those aren't exactly great offenses. So I think they're going to be able to move the football on them.
Well, you better hope Trevor Lawrence doesn't throw 4 interceptions again.
Well, 2 of them were his fault. Let's
That's
be real.
fine.
Let's be real.
It still goes on the stat sheet. Trust me. Trust me.
I guarantee you, if they sat here right now and said you threw 4 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions in the first half, but 4 touchdown passes and you win the game in the second half,
That's
they
all they're
take it
talking
right
about.
now, right?
Yeah, of course you would. Any advancement in the playoffs. Yeah. I also think you have to look at the fact Doug Peterson's done a heck of a job with the Jaguars. There's going to be that familiarity between the coaching staffs. Doug Peterson knows exactly what Andy Reid likes, doesn't like, vice versa. I think for that reason, it's a lower scoring game because of the familiarity between
We're
the
going to
staffs.
see a lot of creativity in this game. They're going to try and outdo each other. And by the way, the 4th down call, great call, but he gets a pass for the 3rd down call, which was a terrible call. So they even out.
And talking about Doug Peterson.
Yes, last week.
All right, it's going to be a high total, but Brady thinks the under will be one of the plays as well, in addition to his Kansas City 8.5. I mentioned this was one game north of a touchdown. The other game on Saturday also north of a touchdown. The Giants catching 7 and a hook, with a total at 48 at Lincoln Financial Field. So again, when we're taking a look at how you guys view this, Pete, what are you thinking here, given that these two teams faced in Week 18, but under different circumstances?
I just think that this is a Giants team that has a plan to attack that defense. And that defense is great. Don't get me wrong. They were 2 away from having the record for NFL sacks in a season. They had 4 guys with double-digit sacks. That's the first time that's ever happened in the league, and that's incredible. But I think Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka are great at what they do. They scheme things up. And I think Daniel Jones really had to go out on the road and win a playoff game, and now he's starting to feel himself. It's a big moment for him. I think they'll score. And we don't know what Jalen Hurts is right now. We really don't. You don't know how healthy he is. Can he drive the ball down the field? Is he going to run? Is he going to be free to get out like he was before the injury? Those are all questions that are unanswered. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Giants plus the points here in this game.
Look, the last time these two teams played, the Giants weren't even playing the starters.
No.
And they were still able to keep it close. And
They got blown out in the one game.
They got blown out in the earlier game of the season when obviously everything was on the line. But this is a different Giants team at this point in time. Defensively, they're playing much better. Daniel Jones and really him as a part of the rushing attack is what I think is going to be ultimately what keeps the Giants in this game. We saw it versus Minnesota last week. And I think between him and Hurts, if you look at both quarterbacks, obviously we know Jalen Hurts is able to carry the rock and hurt you with his legs. How willing is he going to be to do that with the shoulder injury and knowing that he could potentially take on more hits and make it worse at this point? I know it's the playoffs, you want to sell out and all that, but they have greater aspirations. And I think for Hurts, I wonder if he's going to be a little hesitant to be able to take off and run, as opposed to Daniel Jones playing with house money, man.
Right.
I mean, if you look at the season he's had after they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, he is absolutely blown away everyone. He's at a minimum is going to get franchise tagged, if not offered a longer-term deal that's going to make him a lot of money. So kudos to him, but he will use his legs. Saquon Barkley will be impactful in this game, even though the Phillies' rush defense has improved since the addition of Sue and Joseph. I think it's just a tighter game. You know, divisional matchups, these guys have seen each other now 3 times this year. Very familiar. This is another one where I think it goes the under, and I'll take the 7.5 points.
It's amazing what a quarterback could do when his offensive line is improved, and that offensive line is improved. There is one concern with the offensive line. Evan Neal, since he's been back from his injury, has struggled a little bit. And how will they attack him? You're Philadelphia. They can, like we said, they can really rush the passer. That's a concern there.
I also think there's something that Brian Daboll has excelled at, you know, since he got to Buffalo and after he kind of went through a car wash from New England and his time in Alabama, is playing to the strengths of his quarterback and being able to really, you know, put him in a position to succeed. That's what you've seen from Daniel Jones this year. He seems so much more confident with his reads, his progressions, his throws. And when it's not there, taking off and using his legs. And by the way, like, this is a game where you're probably going to see Brian Daboll take a chance here or there. I mean, he's not bashful about it. It's the way they've played the entire season. If there's a 4th and short, you better expect the Giants to go for it.
Let's end it with Pete. You said questions still about Jalen Hurts. So even though he played in Week 18, you don't think you saw enough to what we might see at Jalen Hurts?
He didn't look great.
He did not look like the same guy. He just didn't. He looked like there was something still bothering him. Now, he's had more time, and that could help him. But again, that's still the unanswered question. We don't know what he is going into this game.
I'll button it up with this from a betting perspective here. This thing opened up at 7. A lot of the money, majority of the money is on New York, and yet the money and the line has gone Philly's way, at least by a hook to 7.5, just to give you some insight on that. All right, let's recap the picks from the guys here on Saturday. Brady going with the Chiefs, laying that number, but he does like the under. Pete, surprise, surprise, going with the Jags, although 8.5 points, of course, is a lot there to grab. Giants, both 7.5 for those guys, with Brady taking the over of 48. All right, when we come back, we'll tackle Sunday's slate. 49ers host the Cowboys like it's the 90s, and then Bills host the Bengals, what could be a real emotional rematch there from Week 17. All right, welcome back to CBS Sports HQ. Boy, I wish you could listen in the commercial breaks, because Pete Prisco is of the mind that a losing bet is always a bad bet. No, you can, a losing bet is not always a bad bet.
Let's celebrate losers now. I mean, give me a break, Tommy.
Okay.
No, we're not handing out participation trophies. This is just talking about process.
Winners and losers.
Let's add some context to this conversation, okay? Pete Prisco is most famous for saying he'll come in after a pick one of the weeks and say, you know what? I lost that bet, but I was right. I should have won that bet because something happens at the end of the game that causes the spread to come in, like a backdoor cover, for example.
The Omio Mayo.
The Omio Mayo.
That's when the backdoor cover.
And
go,
that's where
Omio Mayo. There they go.
I didn't win my bet, but that was the right bet.
No.
That's what you will say.
No, I just said the Chargers were the right side last week.
And that's the team I picked.
Right.
But I lost the bet.
And you were a loser. But I'm not going to give you the bet. But you were on the right side.
You just want to give credit. You said it's a losing bet, but you're also saying now it was a bad bet. Chargers was a bad bet. Chargers were not a bad bet.
He lost. So in the end, he was.
It's a losing bet, not a bad bet. All right, let's get to Sunday. You saw the slate there. We're talking about Cincinnati and Buffalo. We're also talking about Dallas and San Francisco. Let's get to the AFC first. This line opened at 5, but it has crept up, actually 4, I should say, to 5 and 5.5, depending on where you're looking at, because of the offensive line issues with Cincinnati. That total at 48, 3 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Out on CBS right here. Both of you guys are on the Bengals, surprisingly, given the offensive line issues that Joe Burrow might have. As we're looking here, Brady, why is that?
Well, first off, I'm going to let Pete give a start here, but I think the toughest thing is if the Bills had Von Miller, I'd probably be on the other side of this bet. They don't. They don't have the closer. You mentioned that last week, or maybe a couple of weeks ago, when talking about the Bills heading into the playoffs. They don't have that dynamic pass rusher that we've seen. They might not need it, though, versus this offensive line group, the way the Bengals struggled versus the Baltimore Ravens last week. But I'm curious to get your pick on this, because I know you're on the side of the Bengals here, but do the Bengals win?
No, the Bengals won't win the game. The Bills will win the game. And oh, by the way, we're talking about Cincinnati's offensive line. Josh Allen was sacked 7 times last week by Miami. It's not like his right tackle's any damn good either. That guy's been a spinning top of the week once this week already. Could have been a couple different times. Spencer Brown, he struggles. They've had issues, protecting their quarterback as well. And here's the other thing. For as bad as Cincinnati is on the offensive line, it wasn't like Buffalo was really getting after the quarterback last week either.
Right.
There were times when Skylar Thompson stood there and did whatever he wanted to. So I think that kind of offsets. This will ultimately come down to Joe Burrow getting the ball out and Josh Allen getting outside the pocket and making plays with his legs and big pass plays with his legs. In the end, I think Allen will make more of them, which is why I'm going to take Buffalo. By the way, should this game even be in Buffalo? There's some question about that too, because if Cincinnati had won that game, it wouldn't be in Buffalo. So they're going to come out. I think they're going to play well. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think both quarterbacks will play well. But in the end, I think Buffalo will find a way to win in advance.
It's funny, though, because Pete keeps going with this mantra. He said 1 in 10. Now it's 2 years later. He actually said multiple. So I've tried to only give him 2 and 8. I'm actually picking not only the Bengals to be able to cover here, but to win outright. I've got the Bengals going all the way to the Super Bowl.
So winning the Super Bowl?
And winning the Super Bowl.
Oh, you and Will Brinson. You must be copying his paper.
It's odd. Well, I said this actually a week or so ago, so a while back when we made these picks. You weren't in. I think Rick Spielman was.
Okay.
The truth of the matter is, though, I think this is a game where Josh Allen has had to play Superman ball, and he is Superman. He's an incredible player. At some point, there's going to be a player or two that turn the tide of this game, and it'll give Cincinnati the win. They've just asked him to do so much. He's been their leading rusher at times. He's had to overcome the lack of protection, the lack of any balance. He's had to scramble and make plays with his legs outside the pocket with some big throws. Josh Allen's one of those special players in this league. Unfortunately, I think they're asking him to do too much. I think Joe Burrow can operate from within the pocket, spread the football around, get the ball out quick, as you talked about. And I also think Zach Taylor knows that the Bills have had a hard time stopping their ground game. And they've got to have some semblance of rush. Now, the
Bengals don't rush it very well.
They don't rush it well, but I think they're going to have to do it a little bit here versus the Bills in order to not let the Bills tee off versus that's basically a bunch of second stringers playing offensive line.
2 questions. Better quarterback, who is it? It's close.
It's close. They're very different. I don't like comparing them for that reason, because obviously Burrow can run, not quite to the extent that Josh Allen can, and Allen probably has a better arm, but I think Burrow's more accurate. And I think the way he plays the game from the pocket is maybe even better than
So he
Josh
didn't
Allen.
answer the question.
I'm not picking because I don't have to.
Even.
It's just a question for you.
Call them even.
They're different, but sure, call them even.
Okay. I'd probably lean to Allen by a smidge, and it's close. Better defense.
I think the Bengals have stepped up, but I think on paper the Bills
Buffalo's
are better defense.
Are they, though? Because this is what I was going to follow up, but statistically the numbers are good, but Bills Mafia has concerns about that Bills defense, something I asked you guys last time around, too. Against the Dolphins, we saw Thompson make some plays, look like this is third-string quarterback, Pete. What concerns do you have about the defense here?
Pass rush. And again, Von Miller not there is big, but they used a lot of draft capital to go get guys to rush the passer. It's time they showed up in the postseason.
I'll be curious, too, how well they cover down on the Bengals wide receivers. That's another area that I thought
Play
the Bills,
off, though.
I thought, and that's an issue because I think Jamar Chase, these guys are tough to tackle in space.
Yeah.
And I thought the Bills would be better in the secondary this year than they have been. I know they've had some injuries back there, too.
Micah Hyde.
That's played a big factor in all of it. Trey was out for a period of time, too. So all that stuff plays a factor. I just think at the end, the Bengals have something going. They're one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. They carry on with that momentum.
This will be fun. I can't wait for this. This is a perfect game to watch. Two great quarterbacks.
All right, a lot of people on the West Coast going to be looking for Dallas catching 3.5 or 4 in Santa Clara against San Francisco with a total at 46. Pete, I'll start with you because you like Dallas catching the points. I'm curious, would you have taken Dallas before Super Wildcard Weekend, before Monday night, seeing how well they played against Tampa Bay, or is there something there against the Bucs that leads you into this pick, maybe catching the 3.5?
Now, let me say, I think the Cowboys are going to win this game outright. I really do. And I don't love the Cowboys in terms of what they did because of what they did on Monday night, because the Bucs aren't very good, let's be real. But their offensive line is now getting into form. And that's important against the 49ers. If you can block them, I think you can beat them. And I think they can block them. Dak Prescott had his moment. That was his moment. Everybody was questioning him. He went out and he played well. The flip side is Brock Purdy has been phenomenal. He's been outstanding. He beat Seattle twice. Their points allowed, they're in the high 20s. He beat the Vegas Raiders, they're in the 30s. He beat Arizona, they're 31. The only defense that he's really beat that was any good was Washington, and they were 7th, and they were at home. So I think this is a real challenge for him. I think it's a real challenge for their offensive line. I love the way Kyle Shanahan calls plays. He makes it easy on the quarterback. But I think this Dallas team, because of what happened the other night, not because of the way they beat him, but because the confidence they gained from beating him. You got to be good on both lines. You got to be able to pressure the quarterback. Both teams can do that, by the way. That's what makes this game so interesting. But I think in the end, ultimately it's going to come down to the quarterback, and I'm going to go with Dak Prescott.
I think that's the big question mark. Is someone going to finally put a game on Brock Purdy's shoulders and see how he's going to respond in a big moment like this? We kind of go back to the Las Vegas Raiders games and that shootout with Jarrett Stidham, but it was somewhat of a meaningless game. Kind of, I don't know that's the same pressure as obviously you're going to see Brock Purdy handle now. And it's a big if. And the reality is the Dallas Cowboys have not been good against the run all year. They're 22nd in the course of the regular season. They're in the bottom half in regards to yards per attempt. The only thing they have going for them is Dan Quinn, their defensive coordinator, obviously was the head coach in Atlanta, where Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator before he took the head coaching job in San Francisco. So this is another game where you've got a lot of familiarity with scheme. And throughout the course of the game, series to series, you're going to see that cat and mouse game with the way Kyle Shanahan moves around Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey and all the different pieces to get the looks he wants, to block him up and run the football. I think Dallas is going to struggle in stopping the run. I think that's the difference, is they're not going to be able to put it on Brock Purdy's shoulder. And even as good as Dak looked last week, that may have been his best game of the season. It's hard to know what you can expect from the Dallas Cowboys considering how bad they looked in Week 18 when he was back out there. So I think you're right, though. The offensive line, putting Peters at left tackle, Tyler Smith at left guard, it gives them their best 5 out there. We'll see how that group holds up.
Big, too. Big and powerful.
It's a big group, but you've also got a defensive front for the San Francisco 49ers that is aggressive, penetrating, and it can be tough.
Hankins being back is big for them on that defensive line. He's good against the run. They're better when he's in the lineup, and I think that's going to factor in here. And again,
look, if you look at the 49ers and the way they run the football, though, that's a team that likes to kind of get out on the edges.
I get it, but if you get immediate penetration in the middle, that kind of gets those
pullers. And Christian
that gets those pullers. They
can't
get outside.
Well, the problem is the lack of size and being able to set an edge. And that's what you're going to see, the CD gaps on the outside. You're going to see Kyle Shanahan attack those and how they play them with their run support, whether that's a safety, backer, whoever. If they can't set an edge, it's going to be a long day for the Dallas Cowboys.
Purdy. It all comes down to Brock Purdy. If he beats you, he deserves all the credit in the world.
Last thing I'll say is, I hope it doesn't come down to a kick for Dallas. Look, I've got a lot of respect for Maher. He's had a great year. It was a bad game. We'll see how he recovers in this one. That's a storyline to keep an eye on.
Go for 2.
7 touchdowns in that Tampa Bay-Dallas game, and the under still cashed at 45 there. All right, let's recap the picks from our guys. For Sunday's action, both guys on the Bengals catching the points, both over the 48 number there. Opposite ends in Santa Clara between the 49ers and the Cowboys, and that 3.5, and Brady likes the over at 46 or 46 and a hook.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.